this article is actually, or this discussion is taken from a couple different articles. They interlace with each other. And one article is from the shtfplan.com by Max Slavo, and it's Republicans and Democrats agree. Yeah. Give vast snooping powers to the U.S. government. All right.
Okay, we need to be calling our congressman.
All right. Now, the other article is from reason.com, and he actually links to it in his article. So I went over there and took a look at it, and it's called Giving Government Vast Snooping Authority is One Thing Democrats and Republicans Both Like. And that's from J.D. Tusil and Richard B. Levine from Newscom. So, all right. So what are we talking about? This is what's just happened. So, we think about all the polarizing effects, the right and left political paradigms that are going on between the Republicans and the Democrats. Well, there's one thing that they always agree on and they can't agree on, and it's been going on since 2001, since 9/11. And that's where the government should have vast snooping powers and conduct mass surveillance on who?
Us.
On terrorists? On people we don't like? No, on the whole U.S. population. Actually, let me just rephrase that. As we found out from Edward Snowden, actually they want to snoop on everybody around the world. So they simply disagree over who should be in charge of abusing those excessive powers. So with all the impeachment circus that's been going on, and it's been doing one thing that's successful, according to the article, is that it's taking the attention away from the government's mass surveillance programs that are constantly expanding. Now, according to reason.com, if Democrats really fear Donald Trump's exercise of power, of the powers of the presidency, why would they propose extending the surveillance powers of the controversial Patriot Act? Think about that for a moment. Because House Democrats have successfully slipped in an unqualified renewal of the draconian Patriot Act into the emergency funding bill, voting nearly unanimously for sweeping surveillance carte blanche. That was the basis for the notorious NSA program. So what happened? In this Continuous Appropriations Act that they just passed a couple days ago, they put in this into that act a section 102B1 of the U.S. Patriot Act, Improvement and Reauthorization Act of 2005, is amended by striking December 15, 2019, and inserting March 15, 2020. So what did they do? They gave it a new sunset. Instead of ending in December, they gave it until March, extending the Surveillance Act beyond another 3 months. Okay, so think about this. This relatively innocuous language pushes back the sunset provision of the Patriot Act by 3 months, leaving its vast powers in the hands of a president who Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden charges with, quote, failure to uphold basic democratic principles, unquote, or who House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is accused of, quote, alarming connections and conduct with Russia, unquote, and Chuck Schumer, who said that this president will shred the Constitution. So, I mean, think about this. It's kind of crazy, but they've joined fronts, continuing to give the U.S. government more power to surveil the United States citizens, but actually above and beyond that. Where did this come from? Where did the Patriot Act come from? Some people may not even know how it started. It actually started not with 9/11, but it actually started back in the Oklahoma City bombing. If you go back to that point in time, this act was actually written up to give full power to the state to begin surveillance of the American people, not just terrorists, not just those that people we don't like, not just those who might be enemies to this country. No, it was to give full surveillance over all the American people. Well, it wasn't the time and the place, and the one who boasts on giving that that original power was who? Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden. He says, I drafted a terrorism bill after the Oklahoma City bombing, and then he says that John Ashcroft sent up what he sent up in 2001 was his bill. So it goes back for a long time. It was after but it wasn't a big enough event in the Oklahoma City bombing. They needed something bigger. So when the bigger event took place on 9/11, that's when the Patriot Act was sent through. It was reauthorized multiple times, twice under the Obama administration, and now it's been. It was set to sunset this December, but they've gone ahead and given it an extension. So this is what's actually been going on. It's going on where people have not realized it. Why? Because the media is not reporting on it. Why? Because of the impeachment and everything that's been going on with what the Democrats and the charades and the shenanigans that they've been pulling in Congress. No, nobody's seen this get slipped in this funding bill to continue funding for the U.S. government for a few more months. And just wanted to put that on the table for us to talk about this morning. And Sandy, you got some thoughts on that?
I just think we need to do something and tell it, don't let it pass. I have nothing to say except because we've discussed this before. It's all the same. It's sort of what we even discussed the other day. We have to raise our voices if we want it to change. That's all I have to say about it. I mean, hello, of course we don't want to be surveilled as much as we are. And we need the powers to cease and desist. But the only way it's going to happen is if we actually make a voice and make some noise and cause some ruckus. So there you go.
Well, and also to give you understanding what else is going on. It's not just the Democrats and the Republicans that just passed this in Congress, and of course they slipped it into the funding bill. But the Trump administration also favors reauthorization of the Patriot Act, including a dropped provision allowing the National Security Agency to gain access to records of Americans' communications. That part had been somewhat defanged under the Obama administration amidst public uproar over revelations of domestic surveillance by whistleblower Edward Snowden.
And see, there again, we need to say, do not allow that provision, get rid of this bill, whatever. It needs to cease and desist and end. And if everybody that claims to be a believer would call their congressman and senator, those people would stop. But they won't. We're sit on our butts and say somebody else will do it. So whatever.
Yeah. So, Mark, what are your thoughts about this whole Patriot Act? I was going to say this, our own representative who is retiring after this term, his name is Matt Thornberry. He was in charge of the Defense Committee. I think that's whatever committee it was. I think it's the Defense Committee. He's the one that I actually wrote to his office, since he was in charge of it, to say, stop funding the Patriot Act, put this thing to an end. And even during the Obama administration, he continued to do that. I was not very happy with him on that. And he's a Republican as well. Mark, what are your thoughts about this little slip in that they put in the Funding Act, considering?
You have to stick him in.
Oh, let's bring you back, Mark. Sorry. There we go. He's back.
You have to stick me in. Thank you very much for sticking me in. Why are we surprised? Why are we disgusted with this? And, I mean, this is another chapter in the very long road to something that we know is going to happen and is, it's a part of who we are. You're asking me, what do I think about, this slipping it in? That's what I think. I mean, it's like just another chapter, and I'm not surprised. I'm actually not even disgusted with it anymore. getting to the point where this story, along with so many others, are being so common nowadays. And then once again, I constantly think I wish somebody would put together how many times something has happened or whatever, and put a timeline together where I can take a look at. I think we wouldn't be surprised that this is just another instance that is on the timeline. We're in a timeline right now, and the United States, working with world governments, are they've already decided that this is what they're going to do. This is going to be the end result, and they know that they can't just do it, or the world will be in uproar, and they don't want the world in an uproar because elections are coming up. But they're always coming up. There's elections, several elections a year, and there's always that scenario. But I think more than anything else, it's like, do we really believe that these things are not already going on? And all we're getting is little inklings that they're putting in front of our eyes. How many things are going on behind us that we don't know about, that are already in place, that we, the public, aren't being versed to, that they're not letting us know about. I think one of the things I think when I hear the story you just put out there is that this is only what they're allowing us to know right now. So if they're putting it off till March, there's an agenda there. There's something that we don't know. And unless we are right there as a part of all the workings that are going on with this, we'll never have the full story anyway. So it's not that I've grown cold to it. It's not that I am tolerating it or agreeing with it or anything like that. I've just kind of become more neutral to it, in that I'm not surprised anymore. And I'm not so much even disgusted by it anymore, because as much as I can, and I'm not saying don't get a hold of our congressmen, don't get a hold of our senators, don't get a hold of people, keep that up. It keeps us, more than anything else, it keeps us alive in this, and knowing that we've done something about it. But how many times has it changed? Don't get me wrong. I'm going to say that it's like, oh, well, why should I do anything? It's not going to change anything. Well, that's not true. It has. Getting a hold of your congressman, senator, whoever, and letting them know these things does change things. But I'm just not convinced that it's not already going on, and this isn't just what we're allowed to see.
Right.
That's my take on this.
Well, and here's something that we also need to consider, and I think it was there was an article over at stevequail.com. I didn't get a chance to get into it, but how there's a big event happening in France. I think it's in Paris, where maybe a technology event, and China was showing about how great they have their surveillance system and all their cameras and that type of thing, and real-time face recognition, all that sort of thing. China was bragging because they want to sell product. They want to sell surveillance systems to the nations. Of course, China wants to have dibs in that, because if they sell a surveillance system, they can hack it and surveil the world. But President Trump has come out and said, well, we want to have 5G, and we want to increase that to 6G, and we want to be above and beyond. Well, it was very interesting, because over at at InfoWars, there was a really good breakdown on what 5G is really about. Not only does it destroy the membranes of the cell, but the capabilities of setting up this antenna array around us, they have to have multiple millions of these antennas in order for it to work, because it's just not as, it doesn't go as far as how the 4G, the 4th generation of cellular communication works. So they have to have more antennas because it's more intense, but the intensity of it allows multiple antennas to hit you, hit me, Sandy, wherever you are, to target your cell phone, wherever you're at, to give you that better quality. But on the other sense, it's that intense radiation as it targets that cell phone, and it targets all that radiation to that one point. They're also able to, if you have it inside your house, inside your room, if you're in a building, if you're in a multi-story building and you've got your cell phone on you, they can actually use that antenna array around you to see in your apartment, your room, your office, wherever you're at, and actually know where your walls are, where your furnishings are, where you are in that room, what's going on in that room between you and other people. They can actually diagram it out and actually see through your walls to see what's going on. I mean, that's how intense 5G will bring it. They can do that somewhat with 4G, and yet now they want to even bring it to the 6th generation. And to be a leading, now it's one of those conundrums. I mean, you got to be leading that technology, or you're having to buy everybody else's stuff. You control it or they control it. And who hacks it, and who has the ability then to use that power against us? Unfortunately, how the Patriot Act is that it's not just the bad people they want to use it. They want to surveil everybody and then dig through the data in order to find maybe that needle in the haystack of the bad perpetrator. But if they need information against you, they'll go back and dig your archives out as well. And so this is kind of where this Patriot Act is really not a Patriot Act. It is a anti-freedom act. So
let me add a little thought that I had in your little spiel there. You know, we're not the only country with this technology. As a matter of fact, we have to know, not even assume, but have to know that the United States is working with a multitude of other countries that have this technology and working on all of this technology. You can't get the United States to say, no, we won't do it. No, we won't search this out. No, we won't allow this into our country or let our people have be subjected to all of this. No, we won't, because it just opens it up for all the other countries and all the other places that do have this technology to have that technology over us and also come into our country, and then we're weak. We don't have anything against it to block it out. So now they just come in and they just take over with all their advanced technology. The United States has to keep up with that stuff. The United States has to pass all these bills. The United States has to use this technology. It be in front of us and behind us, and what we know, what we don't know, they have to. There's just no possible way that the United States is going to allow any other country with any other technology to surpass us. It's not going to happen. So at any point in time that you think that something is not going to pass when it involves this kind of stuff, I think you're kidding yourself, because it's going to pass. It's going to keep progressing in the United States. And I think more and more and more and more and more, we're not going to know ahead of time. I think we're just going to find out that this is what they're doing. If they're monitoring our personal data, or they're monitoring the things that we're doing, or there's a camera set up over there and they can see inside of our house and what we're doing, or they can see inside office buildings or anything like that. I think eventually, and in a very short amount of time, we're just going to find out that that's what's happening, not whether or not we as the people of the United States want it to happen, because it makes no difference. It's going to happen. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with the H.R. 5 bill, which probably won't pass, but we know that what they'll do is they'll take the whole bill and divide it up into parts and get each individual little part passed, and it will happen. It doesn't make any difference whether or not we want it to or not. It will, because of the agenda of the majority of the people that want it, or the majority of the politicians, the majority of the people that are working this thing. In all of these instances, I think we, the people, are in the process of losing all ability to decide anything that's going on in the hierarchy of the United States of America. And that's my opinion on that.
Well, and do you want to hear the twist on all this?
Let you know there, the sky is falling. The sky,
The
sky is falling. The sky is falling.
There it is, right there.
That's right.
Camera's backward there. Yeah. Hey, so let's here's the weird twist though. Of all these it was Israel who developed 5G. They are the ones that invented it.
Almost was putting that in there. We're not going to let them get ahead of us. Go ahead.
And so, but of all the twists in all of this story is they have outlawed it in Israel, and they are using fiber optics for their communications, as opposed to using this because it's dangerous to the people. I mean, here in America and China and Europe and all these certain places in Europe are banning 5G because of its danger, but not all of Europe. But it's literally a race to the end. I mean, that's what we're seeing. Or you can put it in another perspective, and from a biblical perspective, it's a race to the return of Messiah. So that's all I have to say about that.
I want to hear from Sandi. She has that I'm disgusted look on her face.
I am disgusted, and
I know that look. Go
I'm
girl.
disgusted. I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, you do.
No,
Speak your mind. I want to hear it.
I can't. It's your time.
She doesn't want to jump into the Brit Hadashah part.
Oh, whatever. It's not like the first time, and I got two little things to say. I want to hear what Sandi has to say on this.
I don't have any. Honestly,
Nothing new.
it's the same old story, and I'm disgusted by it. I am disgusted by it, and I do think I'm not going to go out just giving up. I'm going to go out fighting.
What
did you say?
I said, Bo Yeshua Bo. Come, Yeshua, come. Come quickly.
100%.
And by the way, anyway, go ahead.
I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm done fighting it. I'm just going to let it happen. So,
well, we can still let our voices be heard. And I think that we should still let our voices be heard. And if there's enough people it came up against, maybe they could actually come up, and maybe it would be the Edward Snowden Act, and stop this mass surveillance against the American people. That's not necessary. We're not living in an age, even in the days following 9/11, we were not living in the days that we need mass surveillance of the U.S. Population.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.